Welcome to our first video chat in 2025 of Donkeys and Dragons, where we spend about 15 minutes chatting about a specific topic. Today, we're chatting with someone who has inspired us for many years, Isabel Evans. She's been a test and quality practitioner for decades and is an impressive international speaker. Isabel is now a postgraduate student. I'm so impressed with that. And doing postgraduate research on some fascinating topics around testers' experiences with tools and automation, tester stereotypes, heuristics for test tool design, and much, much more. Over the years, Lisa and I have talked about job titles for testers and are keen to get Isabel's insights from her research related to that. As a side note, Isabel has the prettiest little garden in all of Scotland, and I've been lucky enough to visit it. Hello, I'm Janet Gregory.
Hi, I'm Lisa Crispin. So, gosh, this is so exciting. Isabel, your research is turning up a lot of really interesting findings, and they challenge a lot of people's preconceptions about testers. So today, you've done a lot of different things, but we're interested today in what you found out about job titles or related to job titles. One of the popular titles we hear today is quality engineer. And we see a lot of discussion about what that title means. Is it appropriate? And we're curious what your views are on that.
Well, first of all, thank you for having me, and a mutual admiration here, because I watch the stuff that you two are doing around agile and holistic testing and your publications, and I just, oh wow, so thank you for all of those contributions. I think it's a really interesting one. This research has been going on for 8 years now. The academic process is quite slow, and I'm even slower because I'm not a naturally academic person. But the first data was collected in 2018 through 2019, and then the second lot of data around about 2021, 2022, and I've been analysing and comparing it. And it is interesting because the proportion of job titles has changed just across that fairly short period of time. So, for example, in the earlier survey, nobody talked about coaching. And I'm going to bet there were people probably doing some coaching, but not seeing it as a job title. I can't believe that suddenly, the industry's turned around to go, now we're doing this. And there was only one person who described themselves as a quality engineer. And across all of that survey, that was 144 people in that set of work. Only 12% described themselves as engineers. All the others described themselves as testers or as QA people or as quality people or as automation testers. So people were talking about themselves as automation testers as opposed to automation engineers. And when you look at the latest survey, which was of 78 people, 10% of them talked about coaching as being in their job title or significant in their role. That's what they saw themselves as principally. 30% of them said that they had engineer in their job title, and 8 of those said they were quality engineers. So you can see there's a little bit of growth there. What I'm going to say on that is those numbers aren't big enough to be statistically certain in any way. And I wasn't doing quantitative statistical analysis really, but that's kind of fallen out on the way. So I think we're seeing changes in job titles, but all three of us will know we've seen a lot of changes in job titles over the years, and also that the same job title being used to mean different things. So I know, Janet, you and I in the past have had discussions by what do we mean by a QA person, and realised we had completely different ideas about what QA stands for and what it implies. So one of the things in the research, in the later research, was I asked people, did they think that their job title actually matched what they were doing? And quite a few people did, but there were other people saying things like either I do a whole load more than that, Or they were saying, well, I'm called an engineer, but I don't really know what an engineer is. And I think that's
Yeah.
a very good question. Or actually, there are no manager posts in my organisation anymore, but actually what I'm doing is test management. It's just that I'm called a scrum master or a
Whatever.
product owner.
Yeah.
So, and there were some people just saying it just doesn't describe what I'm doing.
Yeah, and that's really interesting. I have some very specific views on engineering, period, and what it means. And when I took my quality management certificate 30 years ago or some silly thing, we learned a lot about what QA meant and quality assurance and all of those good things, none of which I think are really applicable anymore in the way we are. And I really don't even know if software engineering, other than maybe doing hardware, is actually engineering, but that's a different topic altogether. I think the only job title that I've ever had that was realistic was Master of Miscellaneous. Because that's really what I did. A little bit of coaching, a little bit of this, a little bit of all kinds of things, right? But job titles have you seen in your research? And when non-testers see those job titles, do you think they have a really good idea about what that person does with that
No,
title?
I don't think so. And just anecdotally, I'm not sure that people who aren't in testing know what a tester does. I'm not sure that people who are in other roles where they actually do testing of some sort as part of that role necessarily know what I'm just going to say quality specialist is going to offer. So I don't think there's a great deal of clarity. The argument about engineering, actually, so I've been doing some background work for the write-up I'm doing at the moment, the dissertation write-up, and I started digging back into the history of testing and of software engineering, and you can see some of those arguments about what's a software engineer, what's a computer scientist, going back into the 1960s. So people like Edgar Dijkstra having strong opinions, and then Jerry Weinberg having different strong opinions, and so on and so forth. And it's not clear because we haven't got, at the Institute of Mechanical Engineers, you do your qualifications, you join it, you're a chartered engineer or you're an EngTech, and it's clear what you're allowed to do and what you're not allowed to do.
Yes.
And we just haven't got that in the whole of the software and IT industry, actually, for any of the roles.
Exactly. And every engineering, which I guess we shouldn't even talk about because it's another conversation again, you have to sign an ethics thing. We don't have any such thing.
We're missing all of that structure.
Yeah.
All of
And
that.
you can see lots of people like Fiona Charles and James Christie and various other people whose names have just instantly got out of my head. My apologies to all of them. I can think of numerous people I've had conversations with in different countries about there's a need for some ethics. There's a need for a code of conduct. I suspect there's a need for a way of saying somebody's not allowed to practice anymore if they're not competent. How do you do all of those things? That's well outside the scope of what I'm researching, and it's kind of that's a whole other piece of research. But I think it is interesting that I don't think it's clear to us, and I don't think it's clear to other people.
But I think it touches on I would think also it makes your research very difficult to do because it is all over the place. Some testers are hiding under rocks and we don't even hear from them. How do you go about doing this research?
That's one of the reasons I've done a qualitative study rather than quantitative. So if you look at a lot of the industry surveys, they'll ask you your job title and there's a drop-down list and they've made a decision about what the job titles are and you have to think, do they mean the same thing? Is that what I'm doing? Whereas quite a lot of the data I was getting was open-ended questions, and I would be saying, I said things like, what approaches do you take when you're testing? What techniques do you use? How would you go about doing such and such? And then I look at that and I go, okay, this and this are looking like similar ways of doing it, but this person over here and that person, you can see they're doing it in this different way. And so I'm looking at it, I'm asking people to say what they're doing, and then I'm assigning out from that. So I'm looking at what words they're using, and we're doing frequency counts on those, but I'm also actually digging under that a little bit. Yeah. And that's been true for the whole of the research. So the very first survey was saying to people, tell me a story about an experience you've had with the tool. So I wasn't saying, tell me about a problem you've had or a good thing. I was just saying, tell me something. And then from that, you start seeing there's patterns emerging here about people's experiences and their level of emotion and their frustrations and also what they're proud of. So that's been a very interesting process to learn how academically to do that, to actually be very, very open and right at the beginning going, I have no idea what's going to come in from this, but from that, then I can start building the next set of questions based on the patterns I found. So that's why it takes so long, but it's also why, as I'm getting towards the end point with a deliverable, I'm kind of confidence, probably perhaps too strong a word, but I'm feeling like there's something there that's got a grounded basis to it, as it were.
Surprises or findings that you didn't expect?
Oh, continuously. Every time I had a hypothesis, I was wrong. I mean, one of the things was right early on, I had no idea I was going to write a whole paper about people's emotional states and their lived experience. I thought this was going to be right back 9 years ago. I thought what I was going to be doing was identifying some usability problems and then coming up with something said here's the solution to those. So all of that stuff about people's lived experience and emotion. The diversity of people in software testing, the different types of people in terms of their communication styles and their preferences and their ways of working, that was also surprising. So the paper's just coming out about that now, and I've talked about it a little bit in different industry conferences, but if you look in recruitment databases, there's a stereotype about what IT people are like. So if career advice or recruitment, this is the sort of people we're looking for. They've got these characteristics. And somebody called McChesney with a group in the States did a study which looked at what our IT people actually like. So if that's the stereotype, it's like only 40% of the people in their survey actually met that stereotype. So you see, so instead of being this tiny group of people in IT, it's actually a much bigger group of people. And when I did the same analysis using their analysis techniques and their theming and coding to look at my samples, it was only 6%. Only 6% met the stereotype of people who are in IT. And I just think, well, that's actually brilliant, isn't it? Because what we've got is a group of people who are much more representative of the general public who are going to be using the software. But the danger is if the recruitment databases and the career databases are pushing towards that stereotype, it's going to put people off. So I think that to me I was surprised how big that difference was, but I also think, wow, that's a cause for celebration.
It is a cause for celebration. And I'm just going to jump in here. We've got about another 2 or 3 minutes left, Lisa. It's really quickly. So one last question, Lisa, before we wrap it up.
Yeah, I'm just wondering, it's so exciting. And I read some of your preliminary papers already and your talks and things like that. When will you have the whole finished dissertation or whatever it is for your research published?
I'm writing up the dissertation at the moment. It is the single hardest thing I've ever had to do in all my hard working life. It is taking so long. So I'm really hoping that's going to be ready for submission in the next 3 months. However, I've been saying that for about 9 months now, and always there's something else that needs correcting. I have, I think I've given you the link for this, which you can put up with the talk. I have a draft of the framework I've produced, which is called IDEA T, which is stands for influencing the design, evaluation and acquisition of tools to support testing. And IDEA T is the Maltese for ideas. And it's a framework to help you think about the tools. As it doesn't tell you what to do, it asks you lots of questions. That's out there in draft, but it's got a lot of changes still to do to it, because in the process of the case studies and expert reviews, I've got lots and lots of things to fix. But that's kind of a prototype of that is out there for people to look at.
Well, it's worth waiting for the final product too, but thank you for sharing all that as you go.
Well,
All
I
right.
just put it out there.
This is so exciting. There's so much going to come out of this. Let me share my screen again and we will wrap up.
All right. So our books are all available on LeanPub and Amazon, the latest one being the holistic testing that Isabel so nicely talked about earlier. And our courses are on agiletestingfellowship.com. Please subscribe to this channel as well as to our newsletter, which has new content every month. The last month was actually about titles and our opinions on it. And don't forget about our blog posts. So contact us. We love to get emails from people. And see you next month. Bye-bye.
And thank you for having me. Thanks very much. Bye now.
We feel very lucky. Thank you.